Hello, this is Dr. Wendy Rowley of the Wonder of Human Design YouTube channel for the playlist series, a new one called How to Assist in the Creation of Peace on Earth. This is part two of the other series that was released, how to bring in the Christ, in how to align to the Christ in the new coming death bardo. And this I'm putting as part two because it makes more sense if you have the first part and you listen to that first. So this will again be 12 sessions, but this will be different in that there is some energy work in this one that we will be doing. So I learned a lot in that last series, and we spoke a lot about the bardos, the 3-day windows of coming into birth and coming out of incarnation into what is often called the end of life or death bardo. Based on what I know about the birth bardo from previous work, that it has a peace path, and based on the title of this, How to Assist in Peace, what was that? How to Assist in the Creation of Peace on Earth. I assume that this is going to be involving the birth bardo and the peace pathway. So I'm going to, as the conduit for bringing in this work and these activations and alignments and energy work, I am going to get out of the way, and I defer to the group that I work with who is doing a lot of these upgrades and healings up in the noosphere where our collective consciousness is, as far out as that may sound. And so we will both be learning new things this day. These tapings are not premeditated, nor are they pre-dialogued. I don't read from a script, except for in the beginning often of the great global healing parties, because I have usually various things to say. But so if we're not totally polished, if we're not studio perfect, just bear with it. I like natural light. I didn't know how long I'm going to be doing this, so I just didn't go into that avenue. And so the sound is usually good, and there's usually not a worry. And the sound of the activations and alignments, I'm a sound healer, are done in sound, and it gives you an added dimension to sit there rather than just sit there in silence during energy work. And a lot of people like it, as strange as it is. It's beautiful melodic sounds, or your soul, or souls to souls, bringing in that energy from the creative source and the soul groups, and then the melodic, the engine-y sounds are when the energy work happens. And you have the free will, of course, to intend to have this or not, based on your call at your heart level on whether this is the right fit for you. So if my work doesn't work for you, just move on. There's many people on the web bringing in beautiful work and information. And as Eleni has said in the last series, I guess more and more people are going to begin channeling on the web. And I thank all those who were brave enough to go forward and begin that and make it not an unusual thing in 2025, those brave souls. So thank you. All right, I'm going to get out of the way, and let's see what comes forward in this series as we move along in it. Oh, good day to you, dearest beings of light. I am Aliania of Cosmic Service, a Palladian Mother of Sound. Peace be with you, peace be with you, and peace be with you. This one gave a lovely segue, because indeed, the first series on how to align to the Christ, the new coming Christ bardo, is worked mostly in the death bardo, in the pathways there that we explained a lot. And we're going to go deeper in this series into the birth bardo, because this one knows very little about it. She learned about the peace path through us and began, well, let's just call it mining her Akashic records to look at that. And so this will be new for her too. And as she graciously said, just bear with us as we work through this together. There are going to be 3 activations and 1 alignment for this work. And what's going to happen is we will provide information, but we're also, in these activations and alignments, going to go off the old well, we're going to call it, for lack of a better word, the pathway of alignment in the peace path. Because the peace path indeed is sort of like the passageway of prayer. That's one way to think of it. Another way to think of the peace pathway that is in the birth bardo is that it is like a direct communion from your heart field through to the soul groups in the greater field that are aligned in divine intelligence. This one heard long ago by reading Edgar Cayce's material. He was a seer in the United States in the late 1800s into 1941. And he has an institution down in Virginia Beach, Virginia, with all of his channelings and information. And he had very eloquently said, prayer is talking to God, and meditation is listening to God. And we use the word creator or supreme being because of various gods and goddesses that were worshipped in the past. And this is very common in healing schools to use these terms. So we'll use supreme being or creator, just so you understand her terminology. Because those words light up people a lot less than certain older words of religion. So we choose the most neutral words to use when we channel through her, as well as she has learned that these words are fairly neutral also in her own healing journey. So these alignments and this alignment and these three activations, which will come first throughout this 12-part series, are basically for you at your individual higher self interface to the group higher self on the human consciousness grid, where in the last series we said there's 3 higher self group spirit bodies that you all create in at the group level. One on the human consciousness grid, one on what's called the interim Christ grid or the interim or the soul creational grid, and one out in the greater field where you come into the planet and hook into the system here. And we spoke about the various consciousnesses that you hook into in that system. Gaia, the Christ healing force and Christ healing spirit body, and anatomy and system, and then the divine intelligence system, so that eventually you all pretty much create within the alignment of divine intelligence, which we said in your earth is kind of like an instruction set that aligns to something people call the divine blueprint, which changes at the Great Shift. And we had said it will change in December 2026. 2025 of this year, into the new divine blueprint, which is lovely because it's not as heavy as the old one. It's lighter. It's got wonderful things in it for your future. And that is what happens at the Great Shift. And then the other thing that is happening is that the divine intelligence is also being upgraded in that consciousness pathway. And there is a new, what are called the keys, and they are explained in the previous series. We're not going to go too deeply into all this, but there's 4 keys. This one learned about it in a healing school that relate to the higher self, and they are healing, teaching, belonging, and union. And we had said in the last video, there is now a 5th key forming at the Great Shift that wasn't here before, that will be related to the new divine intelligence creative force that you all are moving into based on your desire to move along and get to a more enlightened state over evolution in millions of years in your planet. And so this series with these activations will be taking off the old, kind of like the old prayer peace path, onto the new, so that it'll be aligned to the new divine blueprint that we and many other creational beings and angels, archangels, and Arachai are working up in the greater noosphere for the changes. So there's also in it for women an upgrade of what's called their women's resonance, which continues to get upgraded through the Great Shift. And so because women have this extra connection in the heart field out in the noosphere, in the greater field, they need that upgraded, because only souls in women's bodies have that access. Men have that access on the human consciousness grid. So it's just different ways that the Creator has designed a system with pathways for different levels of energy and different polarities between men and women, because it's a system that allows different things to unfold. You don't become androgynous, as we've said, until the very latter part when you are already enlightened. And we are androgynous in our beings now. All right, that was some heady information, but it gives you an understanding of what will take place in this 12-part series. And you can either go running and screaming out of here, going, this is not for me. And we ask you to not put in negative comments, because this one will eventually have to turn off comments, like many have, because there's a lot of outpouring of negativity right now based on where you are in your, creating. And that happens at the Great Shift. So, and most people don't even comment because it's just pretty far out stuff. This is probably one of the most far out things you're going to find on YouTube because of the nature of the work. And we just like to say a segue for that. If you're curious, hang in. You'll learn some new things about your spiritual anatomy and your spiritual nature and the spirit body that overlays your physical body. And if you are feeling the call to this work, well, you're right where you should be. And that's what we have to say about that. All right, so we're going to start this one with a little bit of a description of the birth bardo, the 3-day window that you come down after you go into what's called the wind of birth. So your soul, you're with the Creator out in the greater field with all your soul group. It feels so good out there. You feel what you call love and harmony and belonging and union and all those high qualities. And you decide it's time for an incarnation, and you work that puzzle, and you pick from the soul group that you are aligned with, those who can be part of the puzzle with you, or you'll be part of their puzzle. And you get your family core group together, and your parents are picked, and you make the journey to come down and become enmeshed in a spirit body for that lifetime. So you come down into a kind of a soul cell on the interim creational grid, or the interim Christ grid, into that spirit body that we mentioned there. Then you weave your way over to the spirit body on the human consciousness grid. We're giving this one a moment to get her picture. She can still sort of comprehend. It's just some of that, if it goes into much more thinking or much more trying to make a picture, throws us out. So she's learning to be totally neutral. So that's another thing that you will occasionally see that we have to say, back, 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 as she's getting ready for some deep work coming forward. And she's in kind of a training phase for this. So anyway, as weird as that may sound, and it's not a takeover. We are not here taking over. It's a cooperative endeavor, as she likes to say, with those that she does work with on the web or works with other people in a seminar or summit or la la la. So the wind of birth is now brought in, and so you leave the first Christ. You leave out in the greater field is that higher self group spirit body. Then you leave that one and you come down into the interim Christ grid, or the soul creational grid, and you enter that second one. And we've said the third one is on the human consciousness grid, and then you slide over and you enter in that group creation. So isn't it fascinating? The first thing you start to come into before you are even in a material form or born or anything, is you go into the group level. You are all one. And from there, you take a journey into leaving that soul cell, because each of these have a group soul cell, and you morph into a little bit of a higher self, soul cell, and you morph into a little bit of a soul cell for that Christ healing spirit body, because you need those. And we explain those in the different series that she has on this YouTube channel. From there, you enter into the soul cell for the incarnation for this life, as she described it in the last series, between your last incarnation and this incarnation. And from there, you start to come down, and then you enter into the wind of birth. And in the wind of birth are two things. You make spiritual agreements with your parents and your soul family that you will have in the lifetime, and you make physical agreements with your spiritual and soul family for this lifetime. Who will be the friction? Who will be the benevolence? So each of you learns. So sometimes it's nice to know that that sister or brother or parent didn't get along with you the best that you would have hoped for, but maybe they were holding a little bit of friction that you learned and grew. And this is a very benevolent thought, to think that it isn't a good or bad system and who failed and who succeeded, but that it's a little bit of a soul friction system where some come in to hold a light that everyone feels juicy and warm, and some come in to hold friction so that the soul group and the individual souls learn and grow. And so that's where that happens. Then you enter into the 3-day birth bardo. And that's what we'll be talking about here. But I know there's many here who goes, well, don't stop the story. Then what happens? Just bring us all the way into when we're born. So we're going to finish it. From that, and we'll go back to the 3-day birth bardo during this series, because that's what the emphasis is in this series. From there, we go into the kind of like a physical wind of birth. Our parents unite in that moment of conception, and some things happen there. And then at our first cell, that genetic entity, that sensing apparatus, that pineal communication and pineal creation system that we mentioned but in the last video, which is basically your sensing apparatus, so that here from your physical body with a spirit body overlay, you can have communication back and forth between you and your soul, even out all the way to the greater field, whether you're a man or a woman. And that's purposeful in your first cell. Then various things and energies get added and added as you go through the 9 months in the womb. And then you're born, you take your first breath, and your soul comes in. Your soul comes in, and you come in at the first breath. There are pre-creational energies in the womb, and those can be healed through if you're someone who's really doing the light quote and balancing of your lower karmic akash, if you are a non-indigo person who was born with that lower akash, which, as other readers and channelers have said, that paradigm is leaving. And we speak about that in this one's work. It's percolated in there. And it's actually already gone. The old karmic akash of the old human consciousness grid is already gone and off. And everyone born now will be they call it the indigo ray, but that's a little limiting. It's of the new consciousness is a better way. They don't necessarily will be of the color indigo ray, but they will. But that was a frequency that was identified by Nancy Ann Trapp as she worked with someone in Berkeley to look at her work, because she had a switched optic nerve and she could see the aura in a very profound way. And she started to notice a new ray color coming in, which other healers and spiritual people talk about, coming in on a ray, and different soul groups and rays of color. We're not getting into that here, but if you've heard of that, it's familiar. So the rays of those who saw the indigo color was first seen by this woman, and she began to describe them in a book called What's Your Color?, which this one read. Then others picked up on it and expanded on it and ran with that. But that consciousness is of the new consciousness has a heart and a high heart akash, which is why there needs to be changes in the death bardo and the birth bardo for the shift change time and what goes on. And we speak about that continually in all of the video series that this one is brought forward on the web, as we will continue to speak about that. Okay, so we sort of brought you up on the journey of going from soul out in the greater field with all souls in the magnificence of the creative force, where you are nearly perfected souls and you decide to come to this planet. You pass the, let's say, entrance exam for getting in, because not everyone can, and you get aligned to the planet. Okay, so that's the story for birth. Now, let's go back to what we were going to say about the birth bardo. We're going to describe what's in the birth bardo now. The birth bardo is where you pick up the peace path. It's like that supercharged prayer connection to the Creator. And you also pick up another pathway called the meditation path, which is like the two-way communication of listening and receiving information. And that is connected into what people call the angel chakras and the intuition system. And some people know of the dream catcher around the head in the spirit body. And that's basically spiritual intuition, which in the lower level of the three chakras is that gut intuition at a lower level. But if the higher correspondence in your upper chakras, talking 1 through 7, if you've heard of the chakras, they're the interface of the spirit body and the physical body, and they go into the endocrine glands and then into the organs and into various systems of the body. So the interface of the spirit body is indeed the endocrine glands. And so this one says, I think she threw us off. Just get out of the way. You're okay. So the two-way communication pathway is in the birth bardo because you need that in your incarnation. So you have a direct prayer line out to divine intelligence, to the Creator, and you have a meditation, two-way communication in your intuition in the higher soul chakras where that information comes in, including inventions and the beautiful benevolent things we spoke about in the previous series. That's the pathway they come through, that meditation pathway. And the third thing that is in the birth bardo is you hook in to Gaia consciousness, that feeling of being connected to the earth, which is something that increases more and more in your spiritual anatomy as you have more lifetimes on the earth. Because are you not becoming more enmeshed into the system with more births and more incarnations and more personal power given by the Creator? Okay, so this one is now reflecting what she was going off on a tangent with, that in the last series we called the Creator's divine intelligence in the 24 chromosome interdimensional iDNA in your central column, but out at the periphery of the planet, it was called divine intelligence creative force. And this is new and coming in. Okay, just a little refresh if you saw the last series. And that gets her thought gone and clears her out. My channel source, Dr. Wendy Rowley. Okay, so you have these three connections that you go into. And this one's already going, well, gee, they sound an awful lot like the three consciousnesses you said we mesh into when you hook into the planet. Gaia, Christ, and divine intelligence. And they are. So you take that group consciousness, and there's a little light that'll come in as the sun comes around, and you take that group consciousness of being in this system all the way with you into the birth, because it serves a purpose. And those are the three things you hook into in the birth bardo, and that are there. Now, there's some other series that she has done where we did some work in the birth bardo, and you can find those. I'm sorry, we can't quite recall the name right now. But I believe the peace path, or peace or something, is even in the title of one of them. Okay, we don't want her to get nervous. Names and numbers she still gets a little nervous about. All right, so we wanted you to have the understanding in this first video of the birth bardo, the beauty that you mesh into, the connection it has all the way out to the greater soul groups where you are near perfected, where you first come to the planet and are going to work the puzzle and create here and learn here and grow here and bring in a benevolent system, because this is a special planet. We spoke about that in the last video. And we wanted you to understand the three things in the birth bardo and what you get hooked into as you come down for an incarnation or an experience in a physical body as a soul. So we're going to end this one, and these again will be short and sweet, except for some will be a little longer. And don't be surprised at the shortness of them, because within this is a lot of profound information, implied energy, and through us, resonances through her voice, her eyes, and her auric field that are beginning to start to be engaged, that we spoke about in earlier series. But it's beginning for a lot of women who have had various connections made in various places, some with her, some with others. So women are beginning to radiate a little differently. Okay, so we bid you adieu. You are dearly loved. Expect benevolence in all you do. And we're just going to sign off on these videos in this particular series. This is Allie Cosmic Service, Palladian Mother of Sound. Peace be with you.